Have you ever wondered if the small habits you've settled into as you age are silently pushing away the people you love most? It's a tough question, but here's the shocking truth. Without even realizing it, certain behaviors, like neglecting your appearance or dominating conversations, can erode the respect, warmth, and connection you've earned over a lifetime. Left unchecked, these habits can leave you feeling isolated, misunderstood, or even invisible in a world that's moving faster than ever. According to a 2023 study from the National Institute on Aging, 60% of older adults report feeling less socially connected as they age, often due to subtle behaviors they don't even notice. That's more than half of us facing a quiet drift from family, friends, and community, not because of who we are, but because of habits we can change. The stakes are high. Losing these connections doesn't just hurt emotionally. It's linked to higher risks of depression, cognitive decline, and even physical health issues. Here's the surprising part. Most people, even your closest loved ones, won't tell you when your actions push them away. They're too polite or they don't know how. But the good news? You have the power to shift this, starting today. In this video, we're diving into 12 subtle behaviors that older adults often overlook, from hygiene slips to outdated humor, and we're sharing practical, eye-opening solutions to help you show up with confidence, grace, and dignity. These aren't about changing who you are. They're about rediscovering the best version of yourself. Imagine stronger bonds with your grandkids, warmer chats with friends, and the quiet respect of strangers, all from small, doable changes. Want to age with the connection and vitality you deserve? Stick with us for the next 30 minutes and don't forget to comment below with the number of the behavior that hits home for you. Let's get started. Number 1, neglecting personal hygiene. Let's start with something we all notice but rarely talk about: personal hygiene. It's one of those things that seems small, but it speaks volumes about how we carry ourselves. When hygiene slips, think wrinkled clothes worn a few days too long, unbrushed hair, or a faint odor that lingers. It sends a message not just to strangers, but to the people closest to us. It says, maybe unintentionally, I've stopped caring about myself. And while nobody wants to hurt your feelings by pointing it out, they notice. They might sit a little farther away at the family picnic or cut their visit short. It's not about vanity, it's about the energy you project. In American culture, where first impressions shape how we're treated, hygiene is a quiet signal of self-respect. But here's the thing. As we age, it's easy to let this slide. Maybe you're tired, dealing with arthritis, or just feel like nobody cares what I look like anymore. Those are real challenges, but they don't have to define you. Let me tell you about Mary, a 68-year-old retiree from Ohio. After her husband passed, Mary's spark dimmed. She'd wear the same sweater for days, skip showers when she felt low, and let her nails grow jagged. She didn't think it mattered until she noticed her grandchildren weren't as eager to hug her during visits. It broke her heart. So Mary made a change. She started small: a clean shirt every day, a quick shower with a grab bar for safety, and a weekly nail trim. It wasn't about looking perfect. It was about feeling present. Within weeks, she saw a difference. Her grandkids snuggled closer, her neighbors chatted longer, and Mary felt a confidence she hadn't in years. People weren't reacting to her clothes or her hair. They were responding to the message, I'm still here and I value myself. The mistake many of us make is thinking hygiene only matters when we're young or working. But the truth is, it's a lifelong way to show you're engaged with the world. Try this. Make a simple checklist: shower, clean clothes, brush hair, trim nails. If energy's low, use no-rinse shampoo or ask a loved one for a gentle nudge. Compare how you feel in a fresh outfit at a community event versus wearing something stale. The difference is night and day. The lesson? Hygiene isn't just cleanliness. It's a gift to yourself and those around you, inviting warmth and connection. Now, hygiene sets the tone for how others see us. But what about how we speak? Let's move to our next behavior: speaking too bluntly or harshly. It's another subtle habit that can push people away without us even realizing. Number 2, speaking too bluntly or harshly. Let's talk about something we've all done at some point: speaking our mind a little too freely. As we get older, that inner filter, the one that says, maybe don't say that out loud, can get a bit rusty. You might make a comment about someone's new haircut or how they're raising their kids, thinking you're just being honest. But to the people around you, especially younger folks, those words can land like criticism, not truth. In today's American culture, where empathy and inclusion are prized, bluntness often feels harsh, even if you didn't mean it that way. People won't usually call you out. They're too polite or don't want to hurt your feelings. Instead, they pull back. You might notice shorter phone calls, fewer invites to family game nights, or awkward silences. Why does this happen? Sometimes it's a sense of, I've earned the right to speak my truth after years of experience. Other times it's just habit or even a way to feel in control in a world that's changing fast. But when honesty lacks kindness, it builds walls instead of bridges. Take John, a 72-year-old from Texas. At a family barbecue, he jokingly told his niece her bright pink outfit was too flashy for a picnic. He thought it was harmless, but her smile faded, and she avoided him for the rest of the day. Later, John learned she felt judged. Hurt, he decided to change. He started pausing before speaking, asking himself, is this kind? Is it helpful? The next time he saw his niece, he said, that's a bold style. Love your confidence. Her face lit up, and they ended up chatting for an hour. John realized his words had power, and a little care could turn distance into connection. The mistake we often make is brushing off reactions with, they're too sensitive, or I was just kidding. But words stick, especially with those we love. Here's how to shift. Before you speak, run it through the, would I say this to my grandkid as test? If you slip up, apologize simply. I didn't mean to hurt you. Tell me more. Practice active listening. Nod. Ask questions. Let others feel heard. Compare a blunt remark that shuts down a chat to a thoughtful one that sparks joy. The lesson, kindness in your words doesn't dilute your truth. It makes people lean in, trust you, and stay close. Speaking of how we present ourselves, let's move to our next behavior. Wearing outdated or ill-fitting clothes. It's another subtle way we might send the wrong message without realizing. Number 3, wearing outdated or ill-fitting clothes. Let's move to something we all deal with daily, the clothes we wear. It's easy to slip into a routine of grabbing the same old sweater or pants from decades ago, especially as we age. But when those clothes are ill-fitting, too tight, too baggy, or just worn out, they send a subtle message. I'm not fully here in the present. In American culture, where looking put together signals vitality and engagement, outdated or neglected clothing can make you feel invisible or dismissed, even if no one says it out loud. People notice the faded shirt or the shoes falling apart, and while they won't comment, they might treat you with less warmth or assume you've checked out of caring. Why does this happen? Sometimes it's comfort. Those old jeans feel like home. Other times it's budget constraints or thinking, I'm retired, who cares? But here's the truth. Your appearance isn't about vanity. It's about showing the world you're still connected, still proud of who you are today. Consider Susan, a 65-year-old from North Carolina. After retiring, she stuck to oversized sweaters and stretch pants from the 90s, thinking they were good enough for her quiet life. But at church potlucks, she felt overlooked, like people passed her by. It stung. A friend suggested a small wardrobe update, so Susan visited a thrift store and picked out a few well-fitting blouses and comfortable jeans that flattered her now. The first time she wore them, a neighbor complimented her new energy, and Susan stood taller, feeling seen again. It wasn't about fashion, it was about dignity. The common mistake is assuming appearance only matters for the young or working. But how you dress shapes how others respond, from grandkids to strangers at the grocery store. Try this. Start with one new outfit that fits your current body. Check places like Target or Goodwill for affordable options. Ask a trusted friend or family member for style tips. Compare how you feel in a fresh, fitted shirt at a community event versus something outdated. You'll notice smiles come easier. The lesson? Dressing for today isn't about trends. It's a quiet way to say, I'm still in the game, earning respect and connection. We've talked about how we present ourselves outwardly, but what about how we share our voice? Let's move to our next behavior. Dominating conversations, another habit that can push people away without us noticing. Number 4, dominating conversations. Let's dive into a habit we might not even notice we're doing. Dominating conversations. As we age, we've got a lifetime of stories, wisdom, and opinions to share, and that's a beautiful thing. But sometimes, in our eagerness to be heard, we talk too much, interrupt, or steer every chat back to our own experiences. In American culture, where two-way dialogue is valued, this can make others, especially younger folks, feel silenced or overlooked. They won't usually say, "You're talking too much." Instead, you might notice they stop sharing, keep conversations short, or seem distracted. Why does this happen? Often it's a genuine desire to help or a fear of being ignored in a world that sometimes sidelines older voices. But when we take up all the air in the room, we unintentionally push away the very people we want to connect with, leaving them feeling like they're in a lecture, not a conversation. Take Tom, a 70-year-old from Colorado. At family dinners, he'd launch into long stories about his career or offer unsolicited advice on his kids' lives, thinking he was being helpful. But he started noticing his adult children checking their phones or changing the subject. It hurt. So Tom tried something new. He set a goal to listen more than he spoke, using what he called the 50-50 rule. At the next dinner, he asked his daughter, "What's been the best part of your week?" and let her talk without jumping in. The table came alive with stories, and Tom felt closer to his kids than he had in years. The mistake many of us make is assuming our experiences trump others or interrupting to correct someone. But connection happens when everyone feels heard. Here's how to shift. Practice pausing before you respond. Count to 3 in your head. Ask open-ended questions like, "What do you think about that?" and resist the urge to offer advice unless asked. Compare a one-sided talk that leaves people disengaged to a balanced chat where everyone shines. The lesson? Listening is your superpower. It shows you value others, making them eager to hear your wisdom when you do speak. We've explored how we share our voice, but what about how we judge others? Let's move to our next behavior. Criticizing younger generations, a habit that can quietly build walls between us and those we love. Number 5, criticizing younger generations. Let's talk about a habit that can slip out so easily, criticizing younger generations. It often starts with a simple observation. Maybe you see a teenager glued to their phone or hear about a 30-something's unconventional career choice. Before you know it, you're saying things like, "Kids these days don't know hard work," or "Back in my day, we didn't need all this tech." In American culture, where inclusivity and understanding are increasingly valued, these comments can feel like a rejection of someone's entire world. The people you're talking to, especially your kids or grandkids, won't usually argue back. Instead, they quietly pull away, sharing less, keeping conversations surface level to avoid judgment. Why do we do this? It's often discomfort with change or a nostalgic longing for simpler times. But when criticism becomes a reflex, it doesn't make you seem wise. It makes you seem stuck, and that builds walls between generations. Consider Linda, a 67-year-old from Oregon. She used to grumble about her grandkids' constant phone use, saying, "You're all addicted to those screens," at every family gathering. She didn't realize it, but her grandkids started visiting less, feeling she didn't get them. One day, feeling the distance, Linda decided to try something different. She asked her teenage grandson, "What's so cool about that app you're using?" He lit up, showing her how he edited videos for fun. That small question led to a bond where he now teaches her tech tricks, and Linda feels closer than ever. The mistake we often make is assuming younger folks need fixing instead of understanding. Criticism shuts doors. Curiosity opens them. Here's how to shift. Replace complaints with questions like, "What's it like growing up with all this tech?" Or, "What's exciting about your job?" Spend time in their world, maybe watch a popular Netflix show or attend a local event they enjoy. Compare a judgmental remark that pushes grandkids away to a curious chat that pulls them closer. The lesson? Being a bridge between generations, not a barrier, makes you someone younger people trust and turn to, not avoid. We've talked about how we judge others, but what about how we behave in public? Let's move to our next behavior, Ignoring modern social etiquette, a subtle habit that can make others uncomfortable without us realizing. Number 6, ignoring modern social etiquette. Let's turn to a habit that's easy to overlook but can make a big difference: ignoring modern social etiquette. In today's fast-paced American culture, small behaviors, like talking loudly on your phone in a coffee shop, standing too close in line, or playing videos without headphones, can quietly frustrate those around you. These actions might not have raised eyebrows decades ago, but social norms have shifted toward quieter, more considerate public interactions, especially with technology's rise. When we miss these cues, people don't usually say, "Hey, could you lower that?" They might give a quick glance, step away, or avoid you next time. Over time, these moments add up, making you seem unaware or inconsiderate, even if that's not your intent. Why does this happen? As we age, we might not notice how norms have changed, or we're so focused on our own tasks that we forget to check our surroundings. But in shared spaces like grocery stores or bus stops, etiquette is a silent language of respect. Take Frank, a 69-year-old from Florida. He loved catching up on news videos while waiting at his local diner, playing them on his phone speaker. He didn't think much of it until he noticed other customers moving to farther tables. It stung to feel avoided. Curious, Frank asked his daughter for advice, and she suggested earbuds. The next time he was at the diner, he used them, and suddenly people smiled more, even striking up chats. Frank realized his small habit had been a barrier. The common mistake is assuming old norms still apply, or that others will just deal with it. But modern etiquette shows you're tuned in to the world around you. Here's how to adjust. Observe how others behave in public. Notice how they keep phones silent or step aside in crowded spaces. Try simple changes, like using earbuds or lowering your voice on calls. If you're unsure, ask a younger friend to point out new norms. Compare the irritation of a loud video in a waiting room to the warmth of blending in respectfully. The lesson? Small acts of courtesy signal you care about others' comfort, earning quiet admiration in return. We've explored how we act in public, but what about what we share in private? Let's move to our next behavior. Oversharing health issues, a habit that can shift conversations in ways we don't expect. Number 7, oversharing health issues. Let's talk about a habit that can sneak into our conversations. Oversharing health issues. As we age, aches, doctor visits, and medications often become a big part of life, and it's natural to want to talk about them. But when every chat turns into a rundown of your latest knee pain, blood pressure meds, or upcoming surgery, it can overwhelm the people around you. In American culture, where conversations often lean toward positivity and mutual exchange, constant health talk can feel like a one-way street. Loved ones, especially younger ones, might not know how to respond or feel helpless, so they don't say anything. Instead, they might call less or keep visits short, not out of disrespect, but because they're emotionally drained. Why do we do this? Sometimes it's a way to seek empathy, or simply because health dominates our thoughts. But when it defines our conversations, relationships shift from connection to caretaking, and that's not what we want. Take Diane, a 71-year-old from Wisconsin. At family gatherings, she'd spend most of her time detailing her arthritis flare-ups and doctor's orders, thinking it was relatable. But she noticed her kids seemed distant, often changing the subject. It hurt. Determined to reconnect, Diane decided to balance her talks. She prepared a short answer for health questions. "I'm managing, thanks," and focused on other topics, like a new gardening hobby or funny stories about her grandkids. At the next family dinner, the mood was lighter, and her daughter lingered to chat longer. Diane realized people wanted to connect with her, not her medical chart. The common mistake is assuming health talk is expected at our age, or that others are as comfortable discussing it as we are. But balance keeps relationships vibrant. Here's how to adjust. Save detailed health updates for close confidants like a best friend or doctor. When asked, "How are you?" try a brief, upbeat response and pivot to something positive, like, "What's new with you?" Share joys, a book you're reading, a bird you spotted. Compare a health-focused talk that drains listeners to a lively chat that lifts everyone. The lesson? Your life is bigger than your symptoms, and sharing that fullness keeps loved ones close. We've talked about what we share in conversations, but what about the beliefs we hold? Let's move to our next behavior. Clinging to outdated beliefs, a habit that can quietly distance us from others. Number 8. Clinging to outdated beliefs. Let's explore a habit that can quietly create distance. Clinging to outdated beliefs. As we age, we carry principles that shaped our lives, how we worked, raised families, or viewed the world. But when those beliefs harden into rigid views like dismissing new ideas about technology or gender roles, they can make us seem closed off. In American culture, where growth and openness are celebrated, insisting, "That's just how it is," or "I know better," doesn't come across as wisdom. It feels like resistance. Loved ones, especially younger ones, might not challenge you directly. Instead, they stop sharing their thoughts, fearing judgment, leaving conversations shallow or avoided altogether. Why do we hold tight? Often it's fear. Fear of losing relevance or identity in a fast-changing world. But when we refuse to listen or learn, we risk losing the connection that keeps us grounded. Meet Robert, a 73-year-old from Georgia. He used to scoff at his daughter's non-traditional career in social media, saying, "That's not a real job. Get a desk like I did." It strained their bond. She stopped calling as often. Feeling the gap, Robert decided to try understanding her world. At their next coffee date, he asked, "What do you love about your work?" Her passion for creating content opened his eyes, and their talks became richer, filled with mutual respect. Robert didn't abandon his values, he just made room for new perspectives. The mistake we often make is thinking our way is the only way, shutting out others' experiences. Openness doesn't mean agreeing with everything, it means listening with curiosity. Here's how to shift. Read about current topics, like a news article on changing careers, to spark understanding. Practice saying, "I hadn't thought of it that way. Tell me more." Engage in respectful chats, even on tough topics. Compare a rigid argument that pushes family away to an open dialogue that builds trust. The lesson? Staying curious doesn't diminish your wisdom. It makes you a lifelong learner, someone others admire and seek out. We've talked about the beliefs we hold, but what about how we move through the world? Let's move to our next behavior. Moving without spatial awareness, a habit that can unintentionally frustrate those around us. Number 9, moving without spatial awareness. Let's dive into a habit that's easy to miss but can rub people the wrong way. Moving without spatial awareness. As we age, our pace naturally slows, and we might be more cautious with our steps. Totally normal. But when we stop in the middle of a busy grocery aisle, block a sidewalk with a friend, or drift into someone's path, it creates small moments of friction. In American culture, where public spaces like malls or coffee shops are fast-moving, these actions can frustrate others, making you seem unaware or inconsiderate. People rarely say, "You're in the way." They might sigh, sidestep, or avoid walking near you next time. Over time, these moments add up, shaping how others perceive you. Why does this happen? Often we're focused on our own tasks, reading a label, chatting with a friend, and lose track of the flow around us. But in shared spaces, being mindful of others is a quiet way to show respect. Take Ellen, a 66-year-old from Minnesota. At her local supermarket, she'd pause mid-aisle to check her shopping list, not noticing the annoyed glances from other shoppers. She felt invisible, even snubbed. One day, her son pointed out how her cart was blocking the way. Embarrassed but determined, Ellen started practicing awareness. She pulled to the side when stopping and glanced around before moving. The next trip, she noticed people smiled more, and one even thanked her for stepping aside. Ellen felt respected, not ignored. The common mistake is assuming others will just work around you, or that slowing down excuses unawareness. But a little attention changes everything. Here's how to adjust. Before stopping, scan your surroundings. Check for people behind you. Stick to one side in crowded areas, like store aisles or sidewalks. If mobility's an issue, use a cane or cart for confidence. Compare the frustration of blocking a path to the ease of moving thoughtfully, earning nods of appreciation. The lesson? Spatial awareness is a subtle act of kindness that says, "I see you," making shared spaces warmer for everyone. We've talked about how we move in public, but what about the humor we share? Let's move to our next behavior, using outdated or insensitive humor, a habit that can unexpectedly push people away. Number 10, using outdated or insensitive humor. Let's talk about a habit that can catch us off guard, using outdated or insensitive humor. A good laugh is a gift, especially as we age. But some jokes, ones that poke fun at someone's background, appearance, or choices, don't land the way they used to. In American culture, where inclusivity and empathy are front and center, humor based on stereotypes or old norms can feel disrespectful, even if you meant it as just a joke. People, especially younger ones, might not call you out. They'll laugh politely or change the subject, but inside they're pulling back, hesitant to open up next time. Why do we lean on these jokes? Often it's habit. Humor that got laughs in the 80s feels familiar. Or we're unaware how today's norms have shifted. But when a joke stings, it creates distance, not connection, and that's the last thing we want. Meet Mike, a 68-year-old from Arizona. At a community center potluck, he teased a younger friend about her fancy vegan diet, saying, "What, you too good for my burgers?" He expected a laugh, but her smile faded, and she avoided him later. Mike felt awful. Determined to do better, he watched some modern comedians on Netflix and noticed they focused on self-deprecating or universal humor. At the next event, he joked about his own struggle with smartphone apps, and the room lit up. His friend even joined in. Mike learned that humor could unite, not divide. The common mistake is dismissing hurt feelings with "lighten up" instead of adapting. But thoughtful humor keeps everyone in the moment. Here's how to shift. Steer clear of jokes about race, gender, or lifestyle choices. Try self-deprecating humor, like poking fun at your tech mishaps. Test new jokes with a trusted friend first. Compare an insensitive quip that alienates someone to a lighthearted one that brings smiles. The lesson? Humor that lifts everyone up makes you the person people want to be around, not tiptoe around. We've talked about the words we choose for laughs, but what about when we lean too heavily on others? Let's move to our next behavior, acting helpless when you're capable, a habit that can strain relationships without us realizing. Number 11, acting helpless when capable. Let's explore a habit that can quietly strain relationships, acting helpless when you're still capable. Aging brings real challenges. Things like opening jars or navigating new tech can feel harder. But when we default to saying, "Can you just do it for me?" for tasks we could handle, it shifts how others see us. In American culture, where self-reliance is deeply valued, constantly leaning on others for things you're able to do can breed frustration or resentment. Family and friends might not say it, but they feel like caretakers rather than equals, leading to shorter visits or reluctance to help when you truly need it. Why do we do this? Often it's fear. Fear of messing up, looking silly, or not keeping up. But each time we give up a small task, we chip away at our independence and the respect we command. Take Carol, a 70-year-old from Illinois. She used to ask her son to set up her TV remote every time she wanted to watch a show, saying, "I'll just break it." She thought it was easier, but she noticed he seemed irritated, rushing through visits. Feeling the tension, Carol decided to try. She watched a YouTube tutorial on her remote and practiced daily. The first time she switched to her favorite show alone, she beamed with pride. At their next visit, she showed her son, and his smile said it all. They spent the evening laughing, not troubleshooting. Carol's mistake was assuming she'd fail before trying, a trap many of us fall into. But effort, even imperfect, earns admiration. Here's how to shift. Pick one small task, like using your phone's calendar, and learn it step by step. YouTube is a goldmine. Celebrate small wins to build confidence. When you need help, ask for guidance. Not a takeover, like, "Can you show me how?" Compare the burden of constant reliance to the pride of tackling a task, which lights up your relationships. The lesson? Showing you're still capable isn't about proving yourself. It's about honoring your strength and keeping bonds equal. We've talked about leaning on others, but what about leaning too hard into being right? Let's move to our final behavior, insisting you're always right, a habit that can push people away without us noticing. Number 12, insisting you're always right. Let's wrap up with a habit that can quietly push people away. Insisting you're always right. After decades of life experience, it's natural to feel confident in your knowledge. Your career, your parenting, your way of doing things shaped who you are. But when that confidence turns into needing to win every discussion, correcting others, or dismissing new ideas with, "Trust me, I know better," it can exhaust those around you. In American culture, where collaboration and open dialogue are valued, this behavior makes conversations feel like battles, not exchanges. Loved ones, especially younger ones, might stop engaging, nodding politely while withholding their thoughts to avoid conflict. Why do we do this? Often it's a fear of losing authority or relevance in a world that feels unfamiliar. But when being right overshadows connection, we lose the trust and warmth we crave. Take George, a 74-year-old from Pennsylvania. At family dinners, he'd correct his grandson's history facts, saying, "That's not how it happened in my day." The table would go quiet, and his grandson clammed up. George felt ignored, not respected. Realizing the pattern, he tried a new approach. At the next dinner, when his grandson shared a fact, George said, "That's interesting. Tell me more." The boy opened up, and their talks became lively exchanges. George didn't stop sharing his knowledge. He just made room for others. The common mistake is seeing disagreement as a challenge, not a chance to learn. But humility invites connection, not competition. Here's how to shift. Practice phrases like, "I might be wrong. Let's look it up," to keep talks open. After a debate, ask yourself, did I listen as much as I spoke? Celebrate others' insights, even if they differ. Compare a rigid argument that shuts down dialogue to an open chat that deepens bonds. The lesson? True wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about listening, learning, and making others feel valued, which makes your voice matter even more. We've covered a lot about how we connect with others, from our words to our actions. Let's tie it all together in our conclusion, where we'll reflect on these habits and how small changes can transform your relationships. We've just walked through 12 subtle behaviors that can quietly push people away as we age, from neglecting personal hygiene to insisting we're always right. Each one is a small habit, but together they shape how our family, friends, and even strangers experience us. The beauty is, noticing these habits isn't about judgment, it's about empowerment. You have the power to shift how you show up in the world, and those changes can bring back the warmth, respect, and connection you deserve. Aging well isn't about clinging to the past or resisting change. It's about stepping into each day with self-awareness, grace, and a heart open to growth. And let me tell you, when you make these shifts, the impact is profound. Let me share a story about Betty, a 70-year-old from California. A few years ago, Betty felt invisible. Her grandkids rarely visited, her neighbors kept their distance, and she sensed people didn't take her seriously. Then she started reflecting. She noticed she let her hygiene slide, often criticized her grandkids' newfangled ways, and dominated conversations with health complaints. Inspired to change, Betty began small. She wore fresh clothes daily, asked her grandkids about their lives with curiosity, and listened more than she spoke. She even joined a local book club to stay engaged. The transformation was incredible. Her grandkids now call her their cool grandma. Her neighbors invite her to barbecues, and Betty feels a spark she thought she'd lost. She didn't become someone else. She became the best version of herself, radiating dignity and warmth that drew people in. Now it's your turn. Take a moment to reflect. Which of these 12 habits hit home for you? Maybe it's the blunt comments you didn't realize stung, or the outdated clothes you've been holding on to. Pick one to work on this week. Try a small step, like pausing before you speak or pulling out a fresh shirt, and watch how it shifts the energy around you. You're not just changing habits, you're reclaiming the respect and love you've always earned. And here's the best part. It's never too late to grow. Every choice you make today brings you closer to being the person others cherish, not just tolerate. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with the number of the behavior that resonated most, or share a step you're ready to take. Your story could inspire someone else. If this video helped you see yourself or your relationships in a new light, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video on living vibrantly at any age. Share this with someone who might need it, maybe a friend or family member who's ready to make a change too. Thank you for joining us today. Here's to aging with grace, connection, and a little bit of courage. We'll see you in the next one.